Good morning and welcome to the April 2025 Coffee Connect. Today's topic is going to be on school safety. Um, and I'm going to briefly introduce myself. I'm Sarah Gentry. I'm Region 5 Social Emotional Behavioral Learning Specialist. That means I cover issues 13, 15, and 16. I'm going to go ahead and let my colleague Chandra introduce herself, and we'll introduce the other two.
I'm Chandra Essex. I'm the social emotional behavioral learning specialist for Region 4. So kind of in the middle of the state. I work with the issues 9, 10, 11, and 17.
And I'm Mackenzie Rydell. I am the SEBL specialist for Region 1, which is ESU 4, 5, 6, and 18.
Guys, we are starting up today again, like I said, with school safety, and we have a special guest today, Jay Martin, who is our school safety and security director for the Nebraska Department of Education, is going to be here today to talk to us about all things school safety and kind of how they tie in with social emotional learning. But before we get started and pass things off to Jay, we want to make sure we do our welcome and inclusion activity. So if you want to unmute and share out which pet is your spirit animal today, you can do that. Or if you don't want to turn on your camera, don't want to unmute, you can always just put your answer in chat. But are you a happy dog, a snoozy cat, looks like a hungry hamster or something in that line, or a fish who kind of looks lonely? Scott's a C. I like it. Let me get the chat box all the way open. Of course, I kind of figured, Heather, you would be a happy dog. Me too. We're dog people. I love it. I
Yes.
would give you a little heart, but my camera's still not working. So. Mary Jo's a heart. Chuck's usually in a good mood. I like it. Jay's also a happy dog. That's great. Mackenzie, a cute, and a little chubby. Oh no. Personality is sleeping cat, but you prefer the dog life. I like it. We got some sleepy cats. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. That's awesome. And just keep swimming, Heidi. We are at that stage of the year. I love that. Okay, just a reminder for any of you who are maybe just joining us for the first time, we always upload all of our resources and links into this Padlet link. The password for that is MTSS. We will get a link to the slides. I believe it's put in chat. Thank you, Mackenzie. She's got that PDF of our slides in there. So all the links are active on the PDF. If you see any resources you'd like to access later, the Padlet's a great space to get into. And we've got resources from all our other previous Coffee Connects and recordings. And so we like to kick it off with a quote. We chose this one: safety doesn't happen by accident. I love this. When we think of MTSS and we think of setting up our systems of support, we know that none of these things happen by accident, and school safety is a component of that. We need to plan and be prepared for any and all things that come up, whether that's just everyday classroom behaviors or if it's the really big events. Just being prepared and being proactive and setting up our systems to try to create a space for safety. And with that, we'll talk about what social, emotional, and behavioral learning is. We've got 4 little icons on the side of this slide that we like to reference, and our definition on the left. NeMTSS defines social, emotional, and behavioral learning as a systematic process for fostering social emotional skills. This is for students and adults. We really like to make sure to emphasize that adults are included in our social, emotional, behavioral learning planning. But that's in order to create that safe and supportive environment. So again, just within our own definition of social emotional learning, we're thinking about creating safe environments for our students and staff that support positive behavioral and mental health outcomes for everyone. We do align those standard or our social emotional skills with our career readiness standards from our CTE. And our PBIS expectations and kind of those systems that go into play with PBIS. And then of course we like that little mental health icon to remind us that we're really thinking about overall mental wellness for everyone when we're thinking about social emotional and behavioral learning. This is our social emotional behavioral learning skills star that our team developed over the past couple of years. Actually, it's about a year old now, which kind of feels crazy to me. We spent a very long time working and building this out, but this is kind of a resource we want educators to use. You can print it, you can hang it up in your classroom, and just to kind of be aware of these are the skills that we're hoping to teach our students, and the different kind of there's tools and resources. The skill star is built out beyond this. This is kind of just our overall sample that we give, but just look at the things that you're already doing in your classroom, because there's already a lot of SEBL that's happening, and there's kind of that myth that this is a separate thing. But SEBL is happening all day, every day. So we like to kind of put this resource in front of educators so that they can review it and say, oh, maybe I'm already doing this, or hey, there's an area of growth that I need in my classroom, and here's some ideas and some things, ways I can work through that. So just a resource for everyone. And then now I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to you, Jay.
Hey, and thank you for having me and inviting me today, Sarah, to Coffee Connect. I appreciate it. School safety, we do focus a lot around, again, almost all of our curriculum. I wouldn't say almost, I say all of our curriculum focuses on the emotional aspect of how it's impacting our youth, as well as even the adults, as I go through things today. So we kind of been going through this, basically, how did we get here and what are we doing now? So I encourage you, I'll share it with you at the end of this, is basically hopping on our website. I recently have just updated all of our websites. I literally went from page by page and cleared out everything. I have 2 sections left to add with substance use and relationships, but I can tell you our website's severely cleaned up, and hopefully it's a lot easier to navigate for everybody. Literally on the landing page, I have a list of all the different pages that you can have a quick access link to at the bottom of it. So again, I encourage you to hop on there to scope out everything. But how did we ever get to where we are today? Well, unfortunately, we just had another school shooting yesterday out in Dallas, and kind of leads us into this. It changed things. Basically, if kids don't feel safe, they're not going to take risks, ask questions, make mistakes, learn to trust, share their feelings, and grow. Basically, the emotion of fear has been established, and we need to kind of reestablish that thought that schools are still one of the safest places to be. But unfortunately, when things like what happened in Dallas yesterday get blown up all over the media, everybody thinks about that one school. And when I always try to encourage people, I just think, how many schools were safe that day? But we don't focus on that. We focus on the one that gets thrown out in the news media. It all kind of goes back to, if we go back to that slide, in 1975, the first federal reports on school violence came out with the rise. And then in 1999, of course, Columbine happened. 2006, we ended up with our SRP, which is Standard Response Protocol, and Standard Reunification, which is Reunification Method, which is SRM. What was created by I Love You Guys. That was basically the last message that Emily Keyes sent her parents, unfortunately, before she lost her life in a school incident. But her parents took on the task of, using a lot of stuff from FEMA and stuff, and created this standard response protocol. Basically, it's 5 core actions on what we should do when something happens in a school, far beyond a school shooting. Again, suicide, a lot of the other things that we don't necessarily always talk about, but are things part of school safety. We have suicide prevention and awareness. We have psychological first aid for schools, all things, again, correlated to a child's behavior and their emotions. 2009, we started seeing controlled access and wearing badges. And then in the last 10 years, maybe even a little bit longer than that, we've had this increase of technology. And that's going to be a lot of my focus today on, how that's been impacting, again, not just kids, but even adults' behaviors, emotions, and all those things. And a lot of it is because of the stuff we click on. We get a lot of misinformation. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the cyberbullying and mental health concerns can happen. So as Sarah was mentioning, we operate on those 4 pillars, prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. I'm always a huge advocate if we can focus on doing some preventive measures, having that education, talking about, again, a child's emotions, their behaviors, preparing our schools with emergency operations plans, with the standard response protocol and those things. We won't have to worry about the response and recovery as much because we're going to stop these things from ever occurring if we're doing the right things, hopefully, in our schools. So there's 3 different aspects that can change the path of an incident. One of those is building relationships. The other's having a threat assessment team, and then the last one is, or excuse me, when talking about Mike Donahue, he's talking about the relationship piece of the 3 things that we need to do to try to change that path. And what Mike does is he comes in and he does presentations all day, talks to students during the day, then the staff, and then the parents at night. He's a national motivational speaker. We actually have him here in our state, living now in Kearney. He wrote the book Value Up. The other one called Talking to Brick Walls is basically how parents should be talking to kids today. But he does a really great job of teaching kids that they have value. Basically, he's going to share that with you in this video on this next slide.
Hello, Eagle Nation.
Welcome to our first episode of Season 8 of WEPS The Beak. I'm Zoe Victor.
And I'm Wyatt Paul.
Today we're excited to let you know what's been going on in the halls of EPS.
On Thursday, September 19th, EPS students were treated to an assembly featuring Mike Donahue.
Donahue is the founder and director of Value Up, a Nebraska-based motivational company focused on creating positive school culture.
According to Donahue, he has a specific mission in mind when he visits schools.
If every kid in the school, I really believe this, if every kid in the school knows their true value, you wouldn't have any threats. Because kids would know their value. They're not trying to, one-up each other. They're not trying to hurt anybody because they feel comfortable with who they are.
Guidance counselor Sonia Richer was instrumental in scheduling Donahue's visit to Elgin.
A lot of it was just securing him and
right there.
figuring out dates.
You're muted.
Oops. That's what Mike Donahue kind of went into, was that he didn't, basically, if you have value or teach a kid that they have value, they're not going to get involved in cyberbullying or doing some of those other things that we see in schools. So that was kind of his key point on all that as he went through those. So relationships, a threat assessment team, and anonymous reporting. Safe to Help is our anonymous report line. That's something that you can look into as well. We have over 70% of our school base across the state that are using Safe to Help. If they don't have Safe to Help, they have some other anonymous reporting system, but Safe to Help is paid for by our legislators now as of 2024. So it's a free service that goes through the Boys Town call center. That will change the path of an incident. The other thing is having a threat assessment team. So what do we need for a threat assessment team? Well, you want to be able to identify, assess, and manage any of those issues. Identify what are the issues, trying to find out or assess what the concern is. Is it an unfounded concern? Maybe it's somebody did a prank. Maybe it's one of those types of deals. Or is it a situation where it might be a moderate threat, or maybe something that's an imminent threat that we need to get law enforcement involved. And then ultimately it's that, what are we doing on the back and how are we managing it? What is the documentation and stuff? How are we taking care of this person? It's not just about the potential victims. It's about the person who might be the perpetrator, getting them the necessary help. Maybe they have some mental health issues that they need to have addressed. So again, it's about trying to prevent the harm that might be coming into a school before it ever happens. So who and what should be on your part of your team? Obviously, your school administrators, getting your mental health professionals that are involved in your schools, your counselors, your psychologists. If you have law enforcement or an SRO, that's ideal, but obviously we know in a lot of our rural areas we don't have that, but at least knowing who the law enforcement officers who might respond. And then having teachers come in. All these should have the proper threat assessment training. We currently use Dr. Bowling and Dr. Mario Scalara out of UNL Public Policy Center that do our threat assessment training. We are looking at maybe having some of that be a online model. But again, as you can see in our diagram there, it's about creating policies, having the training, the awareness, and those protocols, again, to address those threats. So in this particular picture, if you were all to receive this picture, just really quick, if you can write in the chat, what would you do? You just received this picture at your school. You can just write in the chat. You got this picture sent to you. What might you do? Notify administrator, officer in the building, call law enforcement, put school in a secure mode. Examine the background picture to see if it aligns with any of our school areas. There you go. Who can actually call out one of the standard response protocol? It actually could be anybody. Anyone can actually do this. We want to make sure that, A, is this even somebody, again, the surroundings of your school? Is it somebody that fabricated with, obviously with AI and things of that nature? We're never sure of pictures today. They can be falsified or created. With AI, you can literally create just about anything. And that's one of those things that always has to be clarified. There is software out there. If it's changed by even 1 pixel, you can tell that it's been modified or adjusted. And again, is it even somebody from your school, or is it just something that's floating around the internet, somebody trying to get a rise? One of the things that we've had across the state, unfortunately, is called a swatting call. A swatting call is a fake call of a shooting or a bombing at a school to try to create, again, that fear factor, trying to get your emotions going. So all these things are things that we got to be aware of, and that's part of the threat assessment team, is to try to assess, what is the credibility of these things. Make sure you're always documenting stuff. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. So that's kind of the purpose of our threat assessment teams, to again try to divert these things before they ever happen. So the foundational concerns that I address, I've been doing presentations across the state for the last couple of years on the digital side as well as on substance use. I'm going to talk primarily the rest of the time just about the digital ones, and how that's impacting, again, a person's behavior. Again, it gets on that threat awareness, again, could potentially be a part of that. Understanding what digital platforms are being used in social media and the presence of teens. Obviously, TikTok's a big one that we hear about all the time on the news, but what other ones are kids using? Like Instagram, Snapchat, Discord is another one that's a big one for cyberbullying. All these different platforms, be aware of which ones are being used and which ones are causing a lot of the issues or the problems in school. A lot of mental health disorders are being misdiagnosed in some instances. When kids spend too much time and spending all their evenings and not getting enough sleep. Sleep is the number one thing for physical and mental health. When they're not getting enough sleep, unfortunately, that can lead to some of the misdiagnosis of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, mimics a lot of sleep deprivation. So unfortunately, some kids, there's been a large misdiagnosis of that. Not to say that they might not have it, but it's because they're on their devices all night. So again, making people aware of getting devices out of the bedroom. That's one of the things that when I talk to parents is if you get those devices out of the bedroom, you're more likely to, again, start to see maybe a difference in your child because they're getting that 9 to 10 hours of sleep they're supposed to get. They say most kids are getting 7 hours or less, which is just with the 7 hours, that's 25% of their health that they're not getting because they're on their devices. So there's a lot of different books out there. I'll share some of those as we at the end of this. But one of them is Dr. Jean Twenge. She actually spoke in Omaha last year for SmartGen. She was their keynote speaker. She wrote a book called iGen. In her book, she has over 7 years of research that she did. It used to be evidence informed, but now it's evidence based. A lot of other people are using her research, which shows in 2012 there was a huge spike, and the spike has continued to climb, where there's a loss of sleep, losing purpose in life, anxiety, depression, suicide rates, and unfortunately, a lot of different things have been happening. The big thing that happened in 2012 is we went from flip phones to smartphones that started using algorithms, and now today with AI, using these things behind the scenes of what we're doing on phones basically program our next views. And because of that, it literally exasperates everything that kids are getting themselves into just based off the stuff they're clicking on. And I'll show that to you here just shortly. But again, it's all the programming of the machines because the goal of these platforms is to keep you on the platform. They're money driven. Zuckerberg's currently in a huge court battle right now with the fact that he's tried to monopolize by buying Instagram, by buying WhatsApp, and creating Meta to become this, one-stop empire, and trying to basically become the monopoly of social media as he did early on. So he's battling that. But again, it's the point proven of there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that honestly is trying to be concealed. So there's several lawsuits out there currently. The other book out there that's literally across the United States that everybody's trying to follow is From the Anxious Generation, Dr. Hyatt. This is one I encourage you to read as well. He gets into play-based over phone-based. Basically, we aren't seeing kids on playground equipment today. What we're seeing them is they're not having these small tastes of anxiety, basically like fighting over who goes down the slide first without getting parents involved. When kids don't have that practice, we've all had practice in our life. The reason why we practice is to get better. Well, kids don't have this practice of having these little stressors and learning to resolve them themselves. And by doing that, they become very fragile instead of anti-fragile. It causes a loss of social skills, emotional bonding, basically that self-governing that they need. They need that practice. And because they don't, they have these experience blockers. We've all seen kids out, or even ourselves out, hanging out with our friends, and we're all on our devices instead of talking to each other. And again, even recognizing your friends' facial expressions and things, those simple things that we take for granted today, without those practices of seeing somebody's face, seeing when they get upset and understanding, oh, wait, I need to quit saying whatever it is I'm saying, it creates that experience blocker or that practice that kids need. And that's kind of what he addresses in his book. So, do we have the other slide or no?
At the picture.
I think that was it. Okay. So yeah, Dr. Hyatt, there's basically what he's, whoops, that was it. No smartphones in high school, no social media before age 16, phone-free schools, bell to bell. That's actually something that's currently in legislation across the state, as well as developing a model policy for schools on social media. And then more unsupervised play, again, allowing kids to have those things, because we never let a stranger into our home. But unfortunately, guys, we're all getting online. We've sent kids, especially in 2020, we sent kids online where they're basically allowing a stranger into their house from anywhere in the world. So how do algorithms work? Basically, every time we click, we create a data point. And with that data point, the algorithm then learns our online behavior, which then in turn, they use that to create our next view. How many of you have been on YouTube? You watch one YouTube video, but it turns into you end up watching several. And it's because they've learned your behavior, and they send you that next video that entices you to watch the next one and then the next one. Or maybe you've been talking in front of your phone. You used to need Siri or Alexa, but you don't even need Siri or Alexa today. It's listening to us right now as we're talking. I can tell you after I've done some of these presentations, some of the stuff I talk about in my presentations will pop up on my phone after I get done talking. And you may have noticed that as well. Or maybe you left your geolocate services on and now it's programming you that way. But again, how does that impacting us on an emotional and behavioral level? Again, it's not like the radio or the TV. It's instantaneous because we're carrying these devices in our pockets, and that's what's making it so extremely dangerous in a lot of aspects. One of the things that I do talk about is the fact that social media has some great things. Devices and digital stuff have a lot of great stuff. It's the digital pool, but how I talk about it is I don't come to talk about the fun stuff that we can do in our pool, but the concerns. And this is one of the major concerns, again, with algorithms. This is a TikTok video. It's going to demonstrate, listen to how many minutes it takes TikTok to figure this person out. It was actually a bot that was created. It's called Kentucky 96. It was made to look at depressing content. But listen how quickly TikTok figures out how many minutes does it take, how many videos does it take, but more importantly, how much depressing content then gets sent. Don't think about it as a bot, but as a child gets sent to them.
Kentucky 96 lingers over this video containing the hashtag depression.
Something's wrong with me.
And these videos about suffering from anxiety.
It's like a reward.
After 224 videos into the bot's overall journey, or about 36 minutes of total watch time, TikTok's understanding of Kentucky 96 takes shape. Videos about depression and mental health struggles outnumber those about relationships and breakups. From here on, Kentucky 96's feed is a deluge of depressive content. 93% of videos shown to the account are about sadness or depression.
People been looking at me. I'm just like, what you looking at?
A TikTok spokeswoman said that 7% of videos.
So as you saw, in 36 minutes, it figured out that they were wanting depressive content. So in those 36 minutes, it was 224 videos in. Then 93% of the additional videos were sent to this person. So if someone has depression or anxiety, they can't pull themselves out of this rabbit hole. Or let's say they're on there clicking on eating disorders. And now they're getting more stuff on bulimia or anorexia or things of that nature. So in part, it's what's causing a lot of these, unfortunately, tragic situations because they're not falling in these holes, guys. They're being dragged in these holes by algorithms and AI. And the reason why kids are jumping on it, again, it's that emotion, that fear of missing out, not being a part of what's going on in Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, doing that funny TikTok video or those challenges that are out there. Or they want to be TikTok famous or YouTube famous. But I always tell them, be aware of these things. First off, your face. If I have a picture of you online today with AI, basically, I could become you. If you have just 3 seconds of your voice, an entire dialogue can be created with just those 3 seconds. So your face can be compromised. I always talk about with address. Unfortunately, predators are real. And once they get your address, that's when, again, bad things can happen. I'm a former law enforcement officer, and unfortunately, it's created a whole new dynamic of criminal online. When it comes to memoirs, we're just sharing way too much personal information online and talking to people we would never talk to in person. And typically, again, it's all emotional based. If I can get you activated emotionally, typically if I can get you angry, probably more than anything, or upset, I'm more likely to keep you on my platform. So that's, again, part of the goal. So when it comes to the misinformation online, we got to purposely change our position because we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Because if you're on the left or the right, your position, you're going to see 3 or 4, which is basically what you see, hear, feel, develops our perception, which also develops our attitude about something online. And the problem is we don't always see the truth. They say about 70% of what we're seeing online is somebody else's truth. It starts with a real news story, but based off your clicks, you might be getting a version of a story on the right side. Meanwhile, somebody else has started clicking on that same news story, but they're getting their version because they're clicking on all these things that are giving you a left-sided view of the situation. And it's what's creating a lot of the cancel culture and the political issues and a lot of the other issues that we see online, problems we see with parents or even with kids online, is because you're getting one version or your own virtual world truth. And unfortunately, like I said, 70% of what you're reading is maybe not true at all or a version of the truth, but it's not the complete truth. And it leads to a lot of the divide that we're seeing, unfortunately, in the world today. Because emotions, not fact, fuel these digital platform results. Again, the echo chambers, why you get, again, 93% of your content sent to you, those extreme opinions and alternative truths. So here's another example of how it's not just the AI piece of this, but it's really about kids copying online. They think what they're looking at is positive. Even the parents are going to tell you in this video that they think it's positive. But then watch as mom, these girls are scrolling through their actual feeds. But then the mom is actually delivering the message that's in these girls' feeds. They think it's positive. You're going to see, obviously, it's not positive. It's toxic beauty ads that unfortunately are filling these girls' minds when they're watching them late at night.
Social media can be good, but it can be bad as well. In terms of her building her confidence, it can build her confidence.
Margie is just trying to find herself now, you know. She's not influenced by social media yet.
Most of the influencers that I've seen have definitely had a positive impact on me.
Hey guys, here's a beauty hack I'm obsessed with.
I am so happy.
Look at how cinched my waist is. Look at how flat my stomach is. It's the shortcut to flawless skin.
You know that Botox doesn't just reduce wrinkles, right? Baby Botox is amazing. You're never too young to start.
That is not me.
There are these great powders. They stop you feeling hungry so you can always skip breakfast and lunch.
And you have to treat yourself to a chemical peel. They're a total glow up. They burn away the top layers of your skin and let new skin grow through.
Hey, Mojo. If your teeth are uneven, you can always file them down with a nail file. It's literally so simple.
File your teeth. Don't put up with your thin lips, sweetie. Lip filler kits let you inject yourself at home. They're my total go-to.
Fake eyelashes are so easy to glue on if you cut your eyelashes off.
There's some really great pills you can use.
Keep telling yourself you're not hungry, you're just thirsty.
Never look bloated again.
We'll get into your skin.
Sexiest lashes. Botox.
Remember, skinny is never finished.
Oh.
It's
Have you actually seen stuff like that?
yeah, a lot. This stuff is on every girl's feed. They're watching,
It's
right?
out there. So as you see, again, the girls thought it was positive. They're trying to live what I call into that online perfection. When I do these presentations in school, I ask the kids after I play this video, I said, is that perfection? And of course, all the kids are shaking their head yes. And then I ask them, how many of you have seen those same type of videos? And I can tell you, the girls especially are all raising their hands. But boys have similar type videos, but again, not to the extent that the girls are. But again, it's driving that online perfection. They think they have to, again, starve themselves to death or live up to some of those expectations that are put out there for them. And I said, should that be perfection? And I say, no, that shouldn't be perfection. And as we go to this next slide, this comes from Mike Donahue's book, Value Up. It's about having them look in the mirror and see themselves as a 10. Unfortunately, when kids are looking in the mirror today, they don't see themselves as a 10. They see themselves as a 3 or a 4 because they're comparing themselves to that online perfection. I tell them you need to look in the mirror and start seeing yourself as a 10. The other thing you need to do, that next circle, is the 5 closest people to you. Who are they? Friends, family. Who are those 5 closest people to you? Those people matter. They should have influence in your life. Those people on the outer circle, those faceless people online, should not have any control or impact on your life. Don't let them control you. The overweighted value that we give the faceless online people, again, it's because of that emotion, that fear of missing out, those things that I mentioned, the emotional base, the emotional attachment. We got to, change will come when they stop agreeing with them. And the analogy I give there is, I tell everybody in the room, I said, we're all attractive, but are you attractive to everybody? And of course, we're not. We all have different tastes. And I talk about how you can be walking down the street with your best friend and you both look at the same person and your friend goes, man, they're hot. And you go, oh, no, they're not. It's because we have different tastes. But it also goes back to the bullying aspect. When somebody says, we know it's far worse than the word ugly, but if somebody says you're ugly online, it only has truth if you believe it. And unfortunately, kids believe that when they hear it and they see it or compare themselves to that online perfection that you just saw. So the next time somebody says that to you, what I tell them to do is you say, no, I'm actually very attractive. I'm just not attractive to you, but that's your problem and not my problem. And then you shut them off. Turn it off and stop listening to it. Stop giving them any value. The value comes what you see with yourself and those 5 closest people to you. So that's kind of the analogy and the same message that Mike tries to deliver to folks when he comes out and talks. So you got to guard your emotions. Again, recognize the goal of the platform, the author behind it, investigate for those truth or lies, but most importantly, think before ever participating on these platforms. Realize that fear of missing out, the bigger piece or those competitive challenges, to not participate in the latest thing going on. Do your research first, educate yourself first before jumping on these platforms, understand what they're doing behind the scenes and why these platforms are built the way they are. And the last thing I typically finish off with kids is talking about they all are given ingredients in life and your ingredients are going to change throughout your life. The key is to understand utilizing those ingredients, manage words, don't let them manage you, create the perfect version of yourself. I use the analogy of my own brother. I say, in my personal opinion, I thought he was given some bad ingredients, but he would never tell you that. He was born with muscular dystrophy, been in a wheelchair most of his life, but he's always went out there and created something, done something, and been something with his life, no matter what's happened. His ingredients changed throughout his life. He created an album playing a guitar, but unfortunately, muscular dystrophy took and changed his ingredients and took away his ability to play the guitar. But did that stop him from creating something, doing something, being something? Well, it sure didn't. So again, that's kind of the whole point behind it. No matter what happens to us in this world, still go out there, create something, do something, be something, be resilient, work through those emotions and those things that are happening. When it comes to the drug piece, again, it's emotional based. You either want to fit in, feel good, or forget your feelings. You're self-medicating because you don't like, dealing with the anxiety, depression, things that you're dealing with. So your kids start to self-medicate. That's probably the biggest problem we see in schools. Obviously, drugs can alter your dopamine levels and things of that and exploit, you like that euphoria you feel when you're high or whatever. Or again, that FOMO, that fear of missing out. So that's again, that emotional tie. I would teach this curriculum as an officer, as well as today, I talk about how there's an emotional attachment to even drug use. And then it's also that shelves. This again comes from Mike Donahue's book. He gets into talking about this, but again, it's about how our goals and dreams are at the top shelf. Kids are, and I've seen this repeatedly teaching in schools for over the last 30 years. As a cop or again, going out today, you have those high school or those middle school athletes and stuff, but by the time they're in high school or maybe they were in drama or band, they're no longer in those things because they stop reaching for the top shelf where those dreams and goals were. Because as you see, the bottom shelf is where drugs lie. And when you start reaching on that bottom shelf, those upper shelves no longer matter. And the only one that becomes important is that easy shelf that you reach to. It's much more difficult to keep your focus on the dreams and goals. So some of the resources, as I mentioned, we have our page. our school safety and security website, ND, as I mentioned, I just updated all that. I encourage you to please hop on there, check it out. We have a lot of different resources on there. We have all our requirements. Again, what is required for plans and policies and students, what are some of the references, state statutes, the educational trainings, ones are best practices, which ones are actually requirement trainings. And then this is just, again, some of the books and resources that we have within our websites. And these are some of the other books, again, and references where a lot of the material, as I've been teaching, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of these doctors, Dr. Leonard Sachs, Mike Donahue. I've spoken with Dr. Gene Twingy, Michelle Borba, who wrote a book that's not even on here. Automating Humanity was actually written by Joe Toscano. He's a former Google consultant who stepped away from Google, wrote this book, Automating Humanity, basically writing out everything that they were doing. He's actually a Millard grad, but he speaks all over the world about that. He's a wicked smart kid that's doing a lot of great things on the positive end of AI and those types of things. And other resources, again, all these resources, again, are available on our website as well. And that's pretty much it. Was there any questions or anything?
If you have questions for Jay, you can feel free to put those in the chat. We are so thankful that he was willing to jump on this morning and join us for Coffee Connect. I'll tell you that when Jay shared the information with us, he has a lot more information to share, but we had to cut down his presentation to about 45 minutes versus his normal lengthier presentation. So we appreciate him being able to join us this morning. If you could click on the exit ticket, give us some information about today. Also, our next Coffee Connect is May 14th, and it'll be on mental health literacy. We also have, here's some information on our upcoming Coffee Connects. We do have one this summer in addition to one past May. Here is information on our upcoming summer events. So we will be doing our summer trainings and our Coffee Connect this summer. You can click to see we have our Coffee Connect in May. Is the last one for the spring. So join us and click on our roadmap if you have questions about where these trainings may lie in your path of systems work. And then for optimistic closure, just take about a minute and maybe write down what was the most important thing from today's presentation for you. And then we thank you as the SEBL team for joining us today and for Jay for joining us also.